Quotation from myself, segment 14, quotation number 167. The fear and denial of dying includes also the realization of the fact that we would never know what happens after our death. The thousands and thousands of events will take place. The history will go on unfolding, but we would not be there to see and to know. That is why the universal and eternal truths are so appealing, because they somehow allow us to get a glimpse of the future. And though the detailed knowledge of it is denied to us, at least we can have a general one, thus observing the future without being present in it, and in this sense live after we have died. Number 168. The quality of books that are advertised in the same way, and probably by the same people, as toothpaste, inevitably start to resemble that of the toothpaste. There is as little difference in concept and style of these books as in colors and substances of the different kinds of a toothpaste, and neither of them, book or toothpaste, would touch one any deeper than the skin of one's teeth. Number 169. The desire of a minority to assimilate into the majority is a necessary but insufficient precondition for the achievement of this goal. The majority itself has to allow this assimilation to proceed, first by accepting it, and then by creating the favorable condition for this process actually to succeed. But the majority almost never act this way out of fear of losing its privileged position in a society. Number 170. The 20th century has exploded many a myth, and now, when it is approaching its end, this iconoclastic century is about to dispose of the oldest and the most enduring one, the myth of a leader as a hero, sometimes almost a demigod, endowed with the superhuman qualities and abilities, who would lead his people to the better, happier life. The institution of leadership is certainly as old as human civilization itself, and, if one considers man to be a part of animal kingdom, probably significantly older than that. The father of the patriarchal family, the primary unit of society, undoubtedly was a leader, and even today, to all intent and purpose, still is, though his authority has been recently substantially diminished by the integration of traditional family, emancipation of women, and the modern state assuming many responsibility which used to be the prerogative of the family. If the family was a primary unit of social organization, the tribe, made up of related families, was a secondary one, with the tribal chief as its leader. When several tribes were united into one state, the head of the state, king, emperor, and in modern times president or prime minister, became a leader. Usually the leader is one person, but occasionally a group of people can make a collective leadership. For example, Council of Tribal Chiefs, the two kings of Sparta, the 9 archons of Athens, and to a certain extent a modern parliament, to name just a few. The human society during its long history has produced many different kinds of leadership and all sorts of leaders. Certain things, however, they do hold in common: power and privilege, life that is much better than those in the subordinate and inferior positions, and willingness to do almost anything to preserve it. Because of that, the majority of the leaders have always been resented, even if only in private. Some were openly hated, and some yet were even overthrown and killed. But the idea of leadership, of its necessity in the conduct of human affairs, always endured, each time being resurrected like a phoenix out of the ashes, and whatever form it assumed, the basic structure consisting of two main elements, the leader and the led, always remained the same. Accordingly, there are two main reasons for this phenomenon to persist. On the one hand, there are the masses of ordinary people who, getting with suffering their food from the soil and eating their bread with the sweat on their brows, are forever looking for a way to get out of this predicament. On the other hand, there is a seemingly unlimited supply of the ambitious, self-assured individuals, power-hungry and greedy, who has always been able to deceive the earning masses into believing that they, as the leader, know the way and therefore are eminently qualified to lead in his direction. As for those obstinate few who refuse to believe blindly, they are either forced into submission or destroyed. Thus, as long as this supply of the leaders is being met by the demand for leadership, or to be more precise, the potential leaders are able to successfully create this demand using the combination of deception and force, the conduct of human affairs will remain essentially the same as it has been from the beginning of civilization, deriving its stability from the balance, however precarious sometimes, between the above-mentioned supply and demand. But as the 20th century drew to a close, the possibility of maintaining that balance much longer is getting to be less and less certain. The revolutionary upheavals of the 19th century has already made this balancing act significantly more difficult to perform than in the past. But it is the 20th century which has witnessed the events of really cataclysmic proportion that had probably struck the death blow to this increasingly tenuous equilibrium. First, this myth-shattering century has drastically reduced the demand for leadership by showing that many roads, for example, national liberation, socialism, democracy, etc., which were for a long time believed to be leading to a better life, has led when tried to either more suffering or to the dead end. And while the old roads has been shown one after another to lead nowhere, there was a glaring scarcity of any new direction to go. But if there are no roads to take, who needs a leader, especially the one that doesn't know where to go either? In other words, when judged by its end results, the inability to bring good life to the vast majority, and leaders had always been blamed rightly or wrongly for that, the basic structure of any existing social organization, that is the leader and the led, has been proven to be a dismal failure, particularly in the view of the fact that leader's own life has always been incomparably better than those of the led. The realization of this, especially offensive in the era of the alleged equality of all, fact, by ever-increasing number of people toward the end of 20th century was the result of the second most important revolutionary phenomenon of the century, the explosion of mass information. The mass information, the knowledge it has brought, has dealt a mortal blow to the myth of a leader as a hero. What has been revealed to all willing to look was unflattering and often a revolting portrait of a leader as an egotistical, ambitious maniac and corrupt and unscrupulous politician, pathological liar, conniving and scheming manipulator, cruel tyrant, greedy embezzler and profligate, treacherous scoundrel, immoral adulterer. The list can go on and on. It is hardly the portrait of a hero, and only blind fools can still believe today that any leader can be at least a decent human being, never mind a hero. But both the mass information explosion and mind-shaking catastrophic events of 20th century has substantially reduced, though regrettably not totally eliminated, the number of such blind fools. The majority of people today are not as credulous, gullible, and trusting as they used to be, even quite recently, and they are getting more knowledgeable and, as a consequence, more disillusioned and cynical about any kind of leadership, almost by the hour. And as the amount of the blind believers decreases, the number of those who has to be forced into submission grows. It is becoming more and more difficult for the modern leaders to exercise their power. In desperate effort to salvage their diminishing authority and enormous privileges, they try to develop more democratic form of the same old scheme, the leader and the led, in order to make it more palatable to the significantly more discriminate and sophisticated masses of the ruled. But all those talk about listening to the people, building the consensus, power sharing, etc., do not deceive the people any longer, for they already know the leaders for what they really are, wolves in a sheep's skin. To repeat, what we are witnessing now is the destruction of the very idea of the leader, of the very necessity of leadership in the conduct of human affairs. The people are not blind anymore, and therefore do not need a guide. Whether this will lead to abolition of such position as a president, prime minister, leader of a party, head of organization of a department, remains to be seen. But one thing is clear by now: the process of dismantling of institution of leadership has begun in earnest, and there is no way back. The only question that remains is what will take its place in the people's collective mind. For it is not going to be easy to find a replacement for the institution, no matter how discredited it became, which is the embodiment of the myth of leader, the myth that has been and still is deeply ingrained in mass psyche, permeating all forms of human relationship, family, nation, religion, work, play, etc. Will it be another, albeit totally unrecognizable reincarnation of the same old myth, or a completely new one that would inevitably be exploded sometime in the future too? Or would man be able, at last, to discover the kind of human relations that are based on the true and absolute equality and justice? For such relations surely will last forever and will never again end in disappointment.